Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and we're here for the latest episode of the Sorare CSC, Celtic Supporters Club. I'm Quinny, and we've got the whole gang back together. We've got Etienne23 Mark Patrick Rare, and McBride Ace. And guys, we're just rolling off the back of a frustrating game at the weekend, a one each draw at home in Motherwell, as we look down the barrel of the Derby semi-final we've got, which won't be covered obviously, but the Celtic fans are also all looking forward to with excitement ahead of the weekend. But guys, how you doing? How did I find you?
Good, mate. How's things?
I'm quite frustrated after the weekend. The result itself, one each, was also a bit of a letdown. But SO5 wise, I went into this game week with so many high hopes where we're going to get at least a couple of goals. As pair, we all kind of felt we could probably predict most of the team coming into this. So there was a wee question mark or two maybe with Jota and Vickers, but otherwise, we kind of had the rest of the team nailed in, and it definitely felt like, on the pitch and on the leaderboards, a bit of an opportunity loss. So on that front, I'm a wee bit bummed out at the moment, to be honest.
Yeah. The Celtic match was a kind of it's kind of encapsulated my whole Sorare game week, to be honest. Pretty much that was a good example of the entire game week. It was pretty bad. Just nothing really went right. And the Celtic game, I mean, look, it was an error from Greg Taylor that cost us in that game, because the game state would have been very comfortable for us. 2-0, 3-0 was on the horizon. And just at that moment, 55 minutes or whatever it was just the worst possible time. And it gave Motherwell a good kind of impetus just to stick in some dirty tricks here and there that people are going crazy about. But what do you want them to do? You know what I mean? They're at Celtic Park. It's 1-1. They got their draw. There's not a lot of space in behind. In the first half, Maeda had done a couple of his trademark Marino's runs, diagonals in behind, and he should have buried a couple of chances. But do you know what? Celtic can't just win every single week, can it? As much as we'd like that, and as much as they've been doing that, it's just impossible to sustain.
Yeah. I think, I mean, I've watched a lot of Motherwell. In fact, I think I've watched about the last 7 or 8 games. I have Kevin Van Veen and Superbear. And I've been really impressed since Kettlewell's taken over. They actually look quite well organised. They look difficult to beat. And I know that, in terms of the soft element of football, I think that Stevie Hamill, when he had Motherwell, was a bit nervy. You can tell with Kettlewell, I've listened to quite a few of his press conferences, and the way he talks is really good, and he's clearly understanding of the psychology of the game, and he's obviously a very good man motivator. I think you can see that. They've certainly won a whole bunch of games anyway that's propelled them right out of the relegation zone. And Kevin Van Veen, absolutely outstanding season, 20 goals. You might call him a hammer thrower, but at the end of the day, 28 goals is not to be scoffed at, And I think like even the way that they set up with the three at the back, they looked pretty composed. I thought, like you said, I kind of took a couple of my Motherwell guys out of teams because I thought, no, this is going to be a 5-0 to Celtic. And I did have Kyogo and Maeda scoring a hat-trick each. But realistically, I don't know, like it's that same sort of pattern of play, the frustrating pattern of play, which is eventually our primary focus of play is through Starfelt and Carter Vickers to build attacks, but it's when they start coming into White and right into the final third with the ball. Not particularly a fan of that. I'd like them just to get that ball forward quicker and allow the more creative players to take the ball in. Haksabanovic, I've been heavily critical of him before. Nothing's changed. Poor game, in my opinion. Just distribution of the ball is poor. I thought if you look at the first half, the passes and the opportunities for Kyogo were almost non-existent. Really, there was really not any real penetration in order to give, lay it off to him in a good position. Granted, they're obviously camped in their own box and defending for their lives, but I just felt there wasn't any real chances being taken to beat the man, get to the byline, to get the ball in, or anything that was going to really assist that. And I think it was a point I said to you before, Quinny, about that's kind of what happens when you have McGregor and O'Reilly in the midfield along with Iwata, is that Iwata's going to just do his job, and I thought he was absolutely tremendous. He's just in there to defend, and I think he's been a welcome addition to doing that job. McGregor was superb, but they're really looking at O'Reilly to be that dominating attacking force, and I thought O'Reilly was really good. However, when it comes to making that eye-of-the-needle pass or creating those additional chances, I didn't think that was present.
Yeah. And by the way, was that the first time we've seen the double pivot? Was that pretty much Iwata and McGregor were both sitting deep? Yeah.
Pretty much.
First time we've seen a 4-2-3-1 from
I can't
Celtic.
take that as a double pivot. I don't think that's
No.
any different to when we've seen Hatate play. It's just Iwata, with Iwata in that team, you can let McGregor have a shot, going forward a little bit more.
Because
you're not going to leave Rio Hatate behind him. And sometimes we do, by the way, but it just does. McGregor just never, ever ventures forward. I see that more as an either-or situation.
The reason I was asking is I wasn't paying attention to the game that strongly from a tactical thing, but I was looking back at most of the kind of lineups and stuff that were on the kind of stats calculators, and they all had a 4-2-3-1. I was thinking, did we actually just play that for the first time? And I didn't totally see it with Matt O'Reilly as a kind of number 10. I didn't really notice it during the game because I was so fixated on Maeda scoring because that was my Sorare agenda, and I actually didn't really watch the game with much more kind of focus than just Maeda getting a goal and an assist. But yeah, obviously when Hatate comes back, it's difficult to fit all these players in the same team, which is a good conundrum, but yeah, it was a disappointing day.
If you listen to Ange's post-match comments as well, he was talking about how he thinks Iwata will be able to cover more ground as he beds into the team and gets up to speed and all the rest of it. And I think what we're probably going to see, it's like, as I was saying, like, Hatate can tackle and he can intercept, and if you look at like earlier parts of the season, he's the guy we're leaving on the halfway line to do those recovery runs that we left Greg Taylor to do against Motherwell. That's normally Hatate that does that job most weeks. So I'm not writing Hatate off defensively, but I don't think Ange lets Hatate sit defensively or wants him, and it's more a case of just McGregor never really gets that many turns in a game. Maybe once or twice a match we see him, but it's always going to be favouring Hatate, whereas Iwata, because he's probably stronger, like defensively, it's then much more of it's the same job that the midfield's doing. For me, O'Reilly was on the left of midfield, which is where we normally see Rio. But obviously he's pressing so high, he's basically like up in that number 10 kind of spot or whatever. But if you look at it through that kind of lens of O'Reilly being on the left of midfield, you'll see that McGregor was like a bit actually further forward, like you would see normally. Rio on the left, and obviously normally it's O'Reilly on the right, if all this is making much sense. But I think it's maybe just another like evolution that the team's kind of moving on, if we've got somebody that can do both sides of the coin. And I do feel that McGregor, he banged in a 100 in this game week, which was great for my team, even though everyone else did absolutely crap. So that was a bit of a kick in the stones. But I think we'll see a lot more McGregor getting into the final third when Iwata's on the pitch, undoubtedly.
Yeah, no Jota either. So like Haksabanovic in the right, I thought he had a poor game as well, Mark. Like, don't think it really suits him at all. If he plays in the left, he likes to cut in, and even for his national team, I think he played a bit more central. So I don't know, maybe it's just a form thing, but I thought he was pretty poor, and he actually scored pretty well in Sorare. He put in a really solid base, but I didn't think he'd done anything that productive. So I think without Hatate and Jota, you missed a lot of creativity. And like McGregor obviously had a dominant game and he scored a goal, but like these guys are guys who can unlock the door, and Motherwell were really good. Like you've got to give them some credit. Like under Kettlewell, they look quite well organised. They got one major chance in the game and they scored it. and then we couldn't really unlock the door type thing. But anyway, I won't go into any further because I had 5 pints by half 2, so I was half pissed. So you won't get any technical analysis from me because I can't remember parts of the first half, so it's fine.
It's probably enough said about the Motherwell game anyway. You know, thing is, was that the third game this season that Celtic have dropped points, so it's hard to you know, take it as a bad result. You know, when you consider the season as a whole at this point. You know, but ahead of the semi-final, does not winning, especially after you see the Aberdeen result, does not winning that game really mean anything?
I don't think so. I mean, like,
yeah,
you know, like like we're talking about complacency, and I think Sean's point is important, which is you just can't win every single game. You know, like you look at teams in England, for example, at near the top. You know, look at Arsenal. You know, now dropping points all the time. People get used to when a team's winning all the time. They just assume it's going to be like that. Yeah. You know, everyone wants to beat you, and the game state in some games is just not going to suit you. So things might go against you. You might get a man sent off. You might, you know, have 78% possession when it's 16 shots and not win the match. But that happens every now and then. Yeah. You know, I feel like in that game, the only thing missing was really the killer pass. You know, to create one or two. The game state changes, and then it could have been a 4-5 game, but it just wasn't. For the Rangers game, and I mean, I'm sure we all seen the Rangers Aberdeen game. I thought Rangers were beaten comfortably in that game, not even close. I would say that for them, it would be more of a concern coming into this game off the back of their result than us. I think, like, irrespective of not beating Motherwell, we were still getting into the right positions, still pressing and properly.
And O had that massive chance that could easily have been the redeemer on the day.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I mean, after dropping points, if Rangers won, then okay, the league's likely still over, but maybe they're going into the semi with a bit more momentum. I think what it does now is, it was almost like that anyway, but it's a massive, massive game because this is Rangers' whole season riding in this game. Like,
sentiment, yeah.
You know, they've got to be up for it. So I don't think it'll be a comfortable game in any way, because I think they'll come out and play, be in our faces like they did at Parkhead. It'll be a real battle, for want of a better word, I think.
I was reading one of the Rangers coaches. To be honest with you, I didn't even know he was at Rangers. Is it Neil? Is it Banfield? One of their coaches.
Yeah.
He was having a go at basically something Ange said after the cup final. He didn't reveal what it was that Ange had said, but he said, "Oh, that struck a chord, and we will remember that. You know, that cloak and dagger type stuff." But you know, he said that before the Aberdeen game, and I genuinely believe that type of psychology is having a negative effect on Rangers. I genuinely think all of that stuff is getting to them. You know, like those, like Fergie used to get at Kevin Keegan and all that. I think all of those, you know, that basic psychology does chip away at Rangers, and you know, irrespective of the fact that they won the league and they won that the cup, I just feel like there is this sentiment of bottler in there. And by the way, I felt the same thing when Rangers were going through that 9 in a row and that horrible time. It just felt, irrespective of how good a team with Van Hooijdonk and Andy Tom and, you know, the Cadetti and all of those tremendous players, you just felt, we're just going to not get over the line. And I feel that sort of stuff really affects Rangers. I could see that result really negatively affecting them in that match.
If you look at both teams as well and how they interact with each other when they have games, mostly Celtic just go out and play their style. They play their way. Rangers are the one at the moment that keep modifying and changing and trying new things in order to try and beat Celtic or even get a draw. And I think in a semi-final like this, they're going to need the semi-final of last season, where essentially both teams couldn't play it for the back, and both teams were just hoofing the ball long, and it was just chaos. Chaos for it. And Celtic could have easily won that coin flip on the day. I think had a good chance to go 2-0 up. But that's kind of the match Rangers need. They need that kind of chaos, coin flip, hacking ankles, referee having a bad game type thing. Whereas Celtic don't need that, really. Celtic could just go out and go a couple of goals up through tremendous play in the opening 10, 20 minutes. I just don't think Rangers have got that level in them to come and play Celtic off the park for any chunk of the match. And I think, like you're saying, Mark, that was like the 90s for us. You know, we couldn't, even when we did outclass them, we would still end up getting a draw, or we'd win the game, but it had no significance out with, it didn't, we'd best them sometimes, but it would always just be, it would never be a title at the end of it or whatever. So,
or there was the leagues we did win, or the seasons we did win, was we beat them, and that was the difference in the seasons when, we did get it over the line back then as well.
So Celtic are,
yeah,
Celtic are the obviously dominant, better set up side. Rangers aren't half as bad as what the perception is of them either. So that's also a worry and a danger, is that, again, you just think the gap's massive and we'll just steamroller them. They could drag us they need to drag us into a real tough game where it's hacking at the ankles. It's Gerrard's narrow 4-3-3. The referee just does what the referee does and just stifles the game as well. We need that to happen to fail. But if this just plays out like a nice football game, Celtic have got so much advantage. Just the way they play is just far superior than Rangers at the moment.
Seeing the last Old Firm game as well, I felt, I think I'd spoken to you before, Quinny, about it, and said that I expected, a threat from Tillman and Sakala. Tillman and Sakala were poor. He got hooked fairly early, didn't he? Tillman, they were pretty poor, and I just don't think that he deployed them as effectively as he could. The one thing that I kind of get the sense of as well is that there isn't that togetherness and camaraderie, and I know that's quite a cliche thing to say about teams that are, not, firing on all cylinders, but it just seems like coming from top down, Beale coming out in press conferences and saying that so and so won't be here next year, and all of these odd messages that he's sending out. These are bad for team morale. I just feel like if Rangers put out their best team against us without any of those issues, they would be in trouble. But I think with those issues, that I can't see them getting past us. And the other thing as well is that outside Tillman, and who else do you really look at and say I'm a bit concerned about him? There's nobody really in that. It's a poor
set pieces, yeah.
The midfield is really poor. That Cantwell, he's the slayer of the Diddy team, but as soon as you put him in a meaningful fixture, he just hides. I think that Rangers, like Sean said, they're going to require some real luck in the game state to get through, which they may well get because of the occasion. But in terms of Celtic, I think Ange will just have everybody, well drilled into the system that he once played, and just come right out at Rangers. I think you'll probably get that bit at the start of the game, or because Rangers generally are coming out frantic, aren't they, in that first 5-10 minutes, like real murder ball levels of chaos. But I think, Celtic just play.
Against Aberdeen as well, which is an interesting thing.
It's a bad sign, isn't it?
Yeah.
And one of them was Scott Arfield. Doesn't really say anything positive.
For 2 minutes.
I think I've seen somebody say, "Oh, maybe Celtic squad strength isn't as deep as they think," but I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, obviously, like you're missing some real key players, and it doesn't matter what team you're looking at. If you take out 2 or 3 key players, then it takes away certain things from your game. And yeah, we never broke Motherwell down, but I think even in with a similar team against Rangers, I wouldn't be too concerned about that. But it'd be good to have, like, maybe even. I don't think Katati's going to get thrown into that game after being out with Hammy for all that time. But it'd be good if maybe he's just wrapped Jota in cotton wool and he's at least there on the bench to come on if it's a tight game to unlock the door, that type of thing. Because against Motherwell, Furu's had games this season where he's missed 4 or 5 chances or he's been getting an end of things. I just didn't really feel as if he was involved in the Motherwell game at all. So that was a main issue for us because he's the guy who puts the ball in the net a lot and we just never really created the chances for him. But you can't win every game, as we've said. And yeah, we'll still manage to extend the gap. That gives you a bit of leeway as well if you're playing the semi. What you do with other fixtures as well, whether you're through or not, you've got some flexibility there as well because the league's pretty much wrapped up in how you plan for hopefully a final.
Yeah. But the positive thing is we do have Hatate, and we could get, if it does go to extra time, then we've got him. That could be a massive game changer for us if we get 45 minutes off Hatate, 50 minutes ending, and 30 minutes in extra time, whatever. So it's a good thing.
If we get extra time.
He's fit and he's trained all week. And if we start with Awata and we start with McGregor and we go that route and we, are struggling in the last half an hour and we've got a Hatate to come on, brilliant. Because we've not had that luxury before. So I'm looking forward to the game. Yeah, he's training. Yeah, he's going to be fit for the game, whether or not he's risked.
That's good.
Remains to be seen, but he's been he's apparently going to train all through the week. And if we get 45 minutes, 30 minutes off of him, brilliant. I'm looking forward to the game. I think it's a coin flip because it's just going to be one of these games. And if Rangers can do what they do best, which is just try to stifle us and kill us and hack at our ankles, then we'll be in trouble and we'll be in it. And again, this is why, looking forward, looking to the future, the likes of Greg Taylor, who has been great at that inverted fullback position, but when we come up against Rangers, who are a better team than the rest of the league, that's just a fact. That back four and the goalkeeper, you start to see their deficiencies in their progressing the ball out, and that's one thing that Rangers could probably take advantage of a little bit better. They haven't done that yet, and I think they'll go with Sakala on Greg Taylor again and just try to take advantage of his, lack of mobility. But again, it's exploitative play from Rangers that's going to get them a positive result here. And, just over a long format of a season, I don't think you can win a league on exploitative play. I think that's better for cup games. So maybe this will be a much tougher fixture. But who knows, Quinny? Hopefully it'll just be 3-0 by 20 minutes.
Well, I get the real sense of the stuff you're talking about with what Beale's coming out with and, the results coming into this and all the rest of it. But I get a real inferiority complex coming out there now in terms of when you hear Beale going on and saying, oh yeah, we're lining up summer transfers already, and it feels like everything that he's coming out and saying is like he's trying to keep up with the Joneses in that sense, like, oh, Celtic are doing that and they're talking like this, so I better do that as well. And that's the kind of vibe it gives off to me, certainly, anyway. Yeah. And I think that kind of stuff like plays into the mentality stuff you were saying, Mark, but I think that is, rife in that team. When all of them open their mouth, you hear them saying like, we could be as good as Celtic, and they're just like desperate to be considered on that same kind of level. And I think that's something that,
I mean, see, the thing is, you're absolutely right. See, the thing is that if you just look at the pure facts, which are, they are not winning trophies. So you have this huge fan base who are so passionate, a little bit too much at times. And the pressure on those players is enormous. And it's all very well, getting, a bit rowdy when you beat, Kilmarnock 3-0 or whatever, and you're dancing around at Ibrox and all excited. But when you're not bringing those trophies at the end of the season, it's, at some point those fans are going to get on your back. And I think there's an element in there which is, you can see with Scott Arfield. I mean, since he's been at Rangers, he's been bang average, but he's playing to the gallery all the time. And lots of them, like Tavernier, who, as much as I'm not a great fan of him, you have to give him some credit. The guy has scored 1 million penalties and
great penalty taker.
But yeah, do you know what? And I know I've slagged him to death over the years. He's vastly improved to the guy that came to Scotland, because when he came to Scotland, he was very average. Now he's very good going forward, and he's decent defending, and his free kick taking is pretty damn good, to be fair to him. But that being said, they're a team of losers. I think realistic. They are a team of losers, though.
That was such a great setup. That was just...
Yeah. They're a team of losers. Like, they're perennial losers. And it's like, all the talking is in the newspapers, and all the talk... There is, like you said about the inferiority complex. I kind of do feel that. Like, actually, I think, like, there's just that real element of talk. And, as much as can have a go at, and they certainly try to have a go at Ange very seldom gets involved in that stuff. Callum McGregor very seldom gets involved in that stuff. They just turn up ready for the game. I mean, look at our guys, Kyogo and Hatate and Maeda in the Old Firm games. They're just battering at guys in the pouring rain. They don't care about going and having interviews with newspapers and saying how good they are there, showing it on the pitch.
Yeah. Big time.
Yeah, that's the thing with the I never created this gap type thing as well. So it's a bit like, if we get down to 7 points or whatever, then we feel as if we've had a reset and we've made up ground. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who's created that gap or whatever. Like, you still were obviously 9 behind or whatever, and obviously now it's the gaps went up to 13 points now. So the gap's grown. So, like, what you've got to do, as you say, is you've got to go and beat Celtic on Sunday, and then you've got to go and win a cup, and then you can say, well, okay, right, well, we get hammered in the league, but we've won something, and that gives you something to build on in terms of success. But it's not a success if you finish 7 points behind and Celtic win the treble. At the end of the day, we all know that it's all about winning trophies, isn't it? It's about the treble. I mean, this is, it's like, don't want to be disrespectful to the other semi-final, but for Celtic, this is a treble day next Sunday, isn't it? If we win, you'd expect to win the final. So, that's huge.
See the thing for me, like, I'm most concerned always about that league. Like, the cups are good. The cups have kind of lost their gloss. It's not as bad as England, where they're putting the reserve teams into the semi-finals and stuff like that, but the cups have kind of lost their gloss. Celtic are so far ahead of the other teams in Scotland now. It's like, it's almost going to take a miracle for a team to beat us in the cup. Of course, that can happen, but winning quadruple trebles and stuff only makes my point. I just think that winning the league in Scotland is, the major thing, and to be 13 points clear is pretty embarrassing for Rangers.
No, I think we'll expect a convincing Celtic win, and whether it's convincing on the scoreline or not might be the other matter for it. I tried to say earlier as well, like, if a lot of you guys are referencing extra time if we get there. I think, like, there'll be an extra sub available if it was to get to extra time, and I tried to slip the little joke in there, but I think if you gave our squad extra time right now, they'd probably bite your hand off. Some of the guys are dying for the minutes, so I don't think that's necessarily something that even goes against us. If anything, I think the guys will be buzzing for it, that they get to play another half an hour of football and they can just keep it going.
There's a full week as well, so it's the split doesn't start until the 7th of next game's Hearts 7th of May. So, and we've kind of already been rotating guys as well. Whether or not Vickers was left out because he's getting injured or otherwise, he didn't play at Kilmarnock. Jota's not played. Hatate obviously might not be that sharp, but he's not exactly going to be tired. Obviously, he's had a break. So, it's all on the day.
Sure. And taking us into that, McBride, after the semi-final, like you're kind of saying, there is kind of, you assume we're going to go on and then win the final regardless of who wins the other one. But with all due respect, obviously, let that game get played. But after the semi-final, I know I'm like saying that to them, not to McBride.
Just laughing. This is just this content when we get beat off a Falkirk in the final. It's going to be beautiful.
That will be getting pulled down, don't worry. But but it kind of ushers into us like the last stage of this season. The league, as we all know, mathematically, it's almost there, But we're going to see, like, we've seen Iwata come into the game, come into the team over the last few games. We expect Hatate to come back in for the final spell after the semi-final. And like you've referenced there, Carter Vickers, we expect is going to have surgery after the semi-final. And we might see somebody like Kobayashi get some more minutes. Bernabe's been sniffing around the squad, etc., etc. Coming into the last 5 games, how much, what things are we likely to see out of Celtic over the last 5 games is probably the best way for me to throw this out to you.
See, just to be clear, is Carter Vickers getting surgery after the semi-final? I'd heard that it was in June.
Well, the way I read the article that came out was he's scheduled for surgery after the semi-final, and the plan was, get him through the semi-final and put him on the table.
Because that to me seems like you would be out for the season. I mean, because you don't once you had that surgery, so he would miss the potential final.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, that makes sense personally. I think that's probably the most logical way to do it. I hope that is what happens.
I think so. He's back in time, so obviously it's going to be something that needs a bit of recovery or build up. So you kind of don't want him missing the start of next season then. And I mean, if you're playing in a final against first division team or whatever, I think you've got a squad that can cope with that. But obviously we've got to get there first, so let's not talk about that too much. But looking at the SO5 wise, obviously a game away at Hearts could be the game to win the league. We won there 3-0 in the cup, played really well that day, but we seem to be allergic to clean sheets in the SO5 games at the moment. I just can't seem to string one together. We've got Hearts away, and then we've got Rangers away the week after that, which probably won't be conducive to SO5 regardless. Then you get Smyrna at home, Hibernian away midweek, and then Aberdeen at home. But I think the problem from an SO5 point of view is by the time we get to those games where you expect to take 2 or 3 off for people, I just really don't know how you're going to predict who's going to line up those days.
I think O is probably going to get a good wee chunk of time. You would think, unless Kyogo's chasing some kind of record or some kind of landmark goal tally, I can see O playing a lot. Kobayashi hopefully is going to play a lot just to get a better look at him. Bernabe, you'd imagine. See, but like Kobayashi, O, and Bernabe, you'd think are the 3 that are going to get kind of game time, because those guys are comfortably second choice behind the other first choice players. Because I would say right now, Iwata, for example, I think Iwata, to me anyway, is a first team player. I mean, I think obviously there's systems and try to fit Hatate and him and McGregor all into the same team. That's the problem. But he's a first team player. There's no one that can do what Iwata does for us in the squad. So I would say Kobayashi, because he's second behind Starfelt, Bernabe and O. I think they've got to get some game time. So they would be 3 players for Sorare purposes. That
maybe Ralston? Yeah, because Johnson went to the World Cup, didn't he?
Possibly Ralston, yeah. It's just whether or not Ralston did have a great period on the SO5, at one point, and it was unbelievable. One of the most, I think he had one of the highest scores on the SO5.
The start of last season.
Yeah, he could get a run too, but it's just his value carrying on. Is he going to leave Celtic in the summer? You'd think he's probably going to have to move on if he wants to play, week in, week out. And if he goes to another club in the SPL, in the Premier League, Premiership, 3 times, then is he going to be worth anything? Because right now, so rare, there's a lot of cards that are worth absolutely nothing. So I
think not want to jump the gun with Ralston, but I think that he would be really valuable to another club in the Scottish Premier League. I mean, I don't know who he would go to. You could only imagine, Hibs or Aberdeen would be the only other ones of the sort of size to take him. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't go to Hearts, but I think that his performance data would definitely be very good for both of them. But personally, I could see him ending up in the Championship, where there's a big wad of dough in game time.
I can see him trying to go abroad, personally, because he definitely, like, the feeling I got with Ralston when Ange
Senor Ralston.
Well, the feeling I got with Ange, and you can maybe even say something similar perhaps for maybe Welsh or whatever, but it did feel like Ralston did feel like this, I've got a second chance at my Celtic career here under this guy, and Ange did really reinvent him and give him a whole second wind. And you've got to think, for a player in that opportunity that probably had his professional football career at a high level completely written off, we're sending him out on loan, he couldn't get in the team. No one was taking him on loan. That's why he was still in the squad, if memory serves me right. So now for it to be that total 180, I think if he could, I think he would maybe put money a wee bit on the secondary and think if he could get into like Portugal or Spain or something like that, he'd maybe just go and see if he could have a bash at doing something on the continent, maybe.
I
But
don't think he'll go anywhere. I think you are all wrong.
no, I think he'll probably stay as well. But if he was to leave, I think he would go abroad.
Yeah, I mean, he signed quite a long deal, and I think he's still got like 2 years left in his deal. So, all right, he's not been playing much recently, but one of the main reasons he's not been playing much because he's had a couple of injuries. So, if he gets a reasonable amount of games, if you look at it when Juranovic was there, Juranovic said he wanted to play more because him and Ralston were being rotated. So, I think you would have seen probably more rotation between Ralston and Johnson if Ralston was actually fit, and unless we decide we want somebody more attacking wise than Johnson, so that we've got an option of going with Johnson who can play a bit more offensive, then I think he's fine.
But Johnson's just way ahead of Ralston now. I think at the point where, when it was Ralston and Juranovic, and by the way, Juranovic a hell of a player. But you're right, there was kind of like a rotation going on there. I think Alistair Johnson is now so far ahead in that position. I think he's become almost undroppable at that position. I mean, if it's winnable games, I can't see Ralston being brought in and rotated in any games that have any meaning.
Yeah, it might play. Last season, he played all the games after the Champions League games, like every single one of them. So he's like Ange went Juranovic in the harder games or the Champions League games, then he played Ralston. So we'll see. I mean, obviously, Ange said he's already making some plans, but it depends who goes. So you never know if somebody comes in and slaps in a bid of a few million or whatever, and we think that's better. But I think he'd be quite happy to stay because he came through a youth setup. So I don't think he's one of these guys where like Gio and Juranovic seem to really they wanted to go. I don't think he's a bad influence in the group or whatever. If he's there next season playing as a rotation, it will still work, and that's why he might just stay. Like from that point of view, I think.
Yeah, he's a good kind of stalwart to have in the club, because if he outlives Josip Juranovic and then he outlives Alistair Johnson and then on to whoever else we go and sign thereafter in 2 seasons from now, if you still have Ralston that whole time, keeping that continuity, if you know what I mean, in terms of what's expected in the role and at the club and whatever, then there's a bit of value to be had for that. And
do you not need
homegrowns, don't we? So
Quinny,
do you need a homegrown for squads as well? What is it, the Champions League or something, or what's the competition you need?
It's like Europe and the league. I'm sure the league definitely have a quota as well, but I don't think it's
Quinny, when you invited me on this show, obviously the real reason I wanted to be on it was to discuss the career of Anthony Ralston long into the night. But we have to break it to you, Quinny. Myself and Mark Patrick Rare, we are recording Sorare Odyssey Extra Time in T-5 minutes. We're doing our extra show. So
we stay on and talk about Ralston for
you guys can stay on all night and talk about Ralston. But I'm just
thinking if there was anything else to kind of bring up. So I think for the last 5 games, I'm expecting a lot of rotation. I didn't even really think about Ralston, but yeah, we'll be back before the last 5 games. But I just wanted to kind of throw that one at you. before we cut and left. But yeah, guys, I appreciate every one of you for joining us on the show. Thanks very much this week, guys. Everyone that's tuned in for the video today, drop a comment down below. Let us know where we've been right, where we've been wrong, and everything in between. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hail, hail, and we'll catch you later.
The Celts are here.